Let me begin the session now. Let me start with something that caught my attention this week. IBM lost nearly $70 billion in market value in a single day. That wasn't just about one company's earnings. It was a reminder that AI is reshaping how markets value businesses and where future growth is expected to come from. So it also reminded me of an idea from economist William Stanley Jevons. When something becomes dramatically cheaper, people don't use less of it; they use much more. That's Jevons paradox. So AI is doing exactly that. It's making intelligence abundant. Um, um, uh, if you see content, research, coding, analysis, almost everyone now has access to AI. So the question is no longer who has AI. Is if everyone has intelligence, what creates competitive advantage? That's the conversation we are going to have here today. And over the next hour, we won't debate models or prompts. Instead, we'll explore five questions every business leader should be asking. Where does competitive advantage come from now? What makes people more valuable in the AI era? Are B2B buying and selling changing? We are going to have a relook at the playbooks. Why our decision is still slow despite faster technology? And can organizations preserve commercial judgment as AI becomes part of every decision? Let's get started. And I'm delighted to welcome two leaders who have spent decades helping organizations build businesses, lead transformation, and drive commercial growth. Let me welcome Deepak and let me welcome Preeti. So glad to have both of you with us today again in this 2020 X Vision conversation. Of course, this topic is very it's been there's a lot of conversation which are going around. Even if you look at industry leaders, they have been also talking about various issues which are related to AI adoptions, AI tokenizations, AI commercializations. And that's the topic that we are going to have a discussion today with both of you. So I formally welcome both of you in this conversation. Let me begin with one simple question. And Preeti, let me start with you. If AI has made intelligence dramatically abundant, what has become more scarce? And was that one capability, behavior, or mindset that you believe has become more valuable in the AI era? And Preeti, at the same time, you can also talk about yourself. A little intro. Would love to hear from you. Thanks.
And I'll just give a very short intro. I worked with insurance companies and I worked in technology with Microsoft, Oracle. And I was CEO at BirlaSoft and at Spice Telecom. So that's the overall 39 years journey and very exciting. I'm an underwriter as well. So you might hear some conversation around insurance, but we have to just cross pollinate the know-how insurance technologies. So, anyways, to your question, Vishwendra, and hello to everybody. Hello to the speaker panel as well. I think, yes, intelligence has become cheap and it's table stakes now. But the difference is in contextualization of the intelligence that's available. So, I was listening to Satya Nadella since I worked in Microsoft. I have a habit of listening to him. He's quite an intelligent person. And if you look at Microsoft's vision also, it says that we should empower every person and organization to reach their maximum potential, and that's probably what AI. There was a question that used to be asked about AI, stating that can AI act like humans? I think it's the other way around. Can humans use it to reach their maximum potential? I think that's the conversation that needs to happen here. And I think that three or four things that AI cannot do today or maybe even difficult tomorrow is four items that are very, very valuable in my mind. One is judgment. Judgment and asking the right questions to the intelligence that's sitting. And then looking at the answers and choosing the right set of, so making the decision on which are the right set of answers that we need to use. That is one, judgment. The second is context. The contextualization of business, which is very different even in the same industry. One goes to one from one organization to another organization, the kind of context they have with respect to the type of customers they have, the customer segments they have, the kind of products or offerings they have. You put all of that together, and the kind of experience that has been built with their customers and their user groups over the years, their partners, that is not replicable anywhere from one organization to another. So I think having that as the context behind the AI can give generic answers overall today. The third point is, very important is the learning that we get over a period. So it is not just about, uh, the knowledge that we gain, but how do you continuously improve with that knowledge? So is the organization a learning organization using AI? And last, trusted. Is it trusted? Is there a trusted governance? I think these are the four things. And the last point that I would like to add, and again coming back to Satya Nadella, is he talked about a reverse information paradox. So knowledge today is flowing from the buyer to the seller, as opposed to the seller to from seller to buyer, as it used to happen in the earlier the world. AI has changed that, which means knowledge is constantly flowing. The seller is becoming richer in terms of the know-how, and the buyer is becoming more and more, averaged out. It is important for the buyer to protect these four things that I just spoke about, which is judgment, context, learning, and trusted governance, and put a trusted boundary around it so that that knowledge stays within. We don't have answers to that today, but I think some master organizations will start building towards that. That's my answer.
Thank you, Preeti. That's an interesting perspective. And yes, the paradox. In fact, we used to talk about, I mean, we heard about information paradox, but yes, recently we also came to know about there's a paradox named reverse information paradox.
Yeah,
And this is so apt, especially when we are being seeing certain challenges, especially from the enterprise adoption of AI. So thank you for sharing your insights. Deepak, to you, do you agree? Do you have a different perspective
I
here?
I have I have no different perspective. I think Preeti's four buckets absolutely give a very good understanding of what's happening, right? The way I want to explain it to people is just make it simple in a different way. Vish, I'm an industrial engineer, right? And when you look at machinery, we always talk about throughput, right? And we talk about the speed of any processing line is as fast as the slowest machine in the chain, right? You cannot exceed that unless you do something miraculous. So then you have just in time, you have parallel processing, all that stuff happening. Here we are, the human brain. Now, Vish, you and I are sellers, right? We used to sell to customers, and Preeti, you're spot on. Judgment in the moment is what always differentiated the great seller from anyone else. Now, along comes AI, and here's what AI does very well. AI generates information overload. People see quantity and people get excited thinking it's quality. The human brain is not even capable of processing all this information. And now you think you're getting intelligence from it. You're not. You're getting overwhelmed from it. So for
Yeah.
me, the reality is that the people that are good at not getting overwhelmed were always the smart ones in any case, Fish. Now the fun is that these are the guys that will adapt AI and become more powerful. So the message that I'm giving here is very, very that if people assume that AI is a great, standardization or the great generalization, that's true in terms of capability. But the guys that are going to win are the guys that will process this information at the right pace, in the right context, and then take it to their advantage. I can tell you right now, Vish, there used to be a ratio that you and I used to brag about, right? 20% of the guys make 80% number. Wish the ratio may
That
not
is still
change,
true.
but the quantum of people will change. The quantity of people delivering that number is going to change. Previously, to be six out of maybe 50 people doing that number, it'll now be two out of 10. So I see a danger with this. But I really like Preeti answer. I think it covers the attributes very, very politely, very nicely. It covers everything. I just wanted to caution about cognitive overload. A lot of people misunderstand. Now, people have labeled it as AI slop, right? People still label it AI slop, but guess what? We still consume it. So why is human
Yeah.
behavior not changing? It has to change because we need to consume in a different way. We need to absorb in a different way. That's my what I would add on to Preeti's point. And yes, judgment matters.
Yeah, no, thank you, Deepak. Thank you so much. In fact, there's also a bit of um, the variations in adoption, especially when you look at the Indian market and the US market. So here in India, in fact, I think yesterday only there was a report that came out wherein it was mentioned that Indian enterprises, even the marketing team, they are not adopting AI to the level which the Eastern industry leaders were expecting. So there's a gap in terms of that adoption, and then now we are also referring to certain cautions, concerns, especially where Satya Nadella talked about in terms of reverse information paradox, and we also hear um, uh, from Alex Karp, CEO of Palante, who mentioned that if you are adopting AI without any thought process, then you may lose your alpha as you move forward. So, in fact, while organizations are adopting AI, they are actually giving their IP to the foundational models, uh, which is kind of losing their alpha. So that's where now let me move to the next question that I have, and let's talk about this competitive alpha. What is what has been talked about recently in the news and by Alex Karp, and at the same time, um, uh, you know, Microsoft Satya Nadella also talked about reverse information paradox. So both of them are actually talking the same, is the same message that they are trying to deliver, especially in terms of where organizations, while we are adopting AI, um, there are chances, there's a potential that the alpha may get lost. But let me have a question to Preeti. So in this scenario, in this context, you talked about Microsoft viewpoint, Satya Nadella's viewpoint. Now, uh, from your experience, have you seen AI strengthen or weaken enterprise, any organization's alpha? I mean, it's in your journey with this, working with startups, or any experience that you might have had in the with any organizations. So, if you could share some examples, if you could talk about that shift in the alpha. You're on mute, Preeti. We can't hear you.
She's on mute
I mean,
now.
now?
Yes, now you.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I have seen both kinds. One, I'll give an example of one organization, a pretty large organization. But very interestingly, whenever you talk to any CEO or the chairman of an organization and you say you'd like to showcase certain models on AI that will impact the industry, the first thing they tell you, please go to my CDO, please go to my CTO. That's the first example that either they don't understand or they don't want to understand, and they expect it to go to somebody else who maybe they will understand later, or sometimes they don't, they expect them to take the decision and come with their recommendations. That's a very
Yeah.
sorry state of affairs, because this is not about AI adoption, this is about business transformation. The faster the leadership understands that it is about the business transformation and brings in, I'm sorry, and brings in and a kind of transformative design into the organization, which includes change management, I think that's the only way things will work. Now, I saw one organization in a very large telco in the US who actually ended up doing a brilliant job of adopting a bite-sized, AI, but it helped them reduce. At that time, it was more about efficiency, so they helped reduce, the cost of their call centers big time. And it was about the design,
The leadership sat with us on the design. The leadership actually worked on the entire, change management solution adoption, because it was a very, very large enterprise. And I think that made a big difference. That was very, very positive, and they did get the benefits. More than the benefits, I think the people started adopting to an AI based thinking, and that was very, very relevant for them. uh, Going forward, I think, I'm sure they have done more. I have no more with the organization where we implemented that. But coming to the third one, the second one, which is where things went awry. Things went awry because it was used as an AI adoption in one insurance firm, and it did not work out because it was more like a tick mark. We have committed to the board, we have a budget given to us, and then, we will do an AI adoption. That's it. And at the end of the day, they said it was a failure. Failure simply because nobody adopted it. Nobody understood what was the value of it. Nobody realized how they can benefit. Had they done it at that point of time, I'm saying about 3 4 years back, they would have had an ample opportunity to be a master in that space. And the third one that I'm doing right now is where we saw some blips, but since the founder and the board were completely interested in making this their innovative advantage. I think they all got into it. They had the patience to allow the training models to be adopted. It's very complex. It's a reinsurance organization, very complex business. But they wanted to have it. And every day I see it making a difference to different modules within the organization, the process, the data alignment. A good thing that it is a comparatively new organization. So I see new organizations who are about 0 to 5 years old, they are taking it up very fast. And there are a whole bunch of insurance organizations that are coming up which realize they have so much data, they have so much intelligence, but they don't have the design to use it effectively. And I'm pretty, excited by that world that is coming up. The older work organizations are very slow to take decisions because, insurance companies are very moneyed, by the way. So it's
Yeah.
okay. They get all their premium upfront. So they are cash rich, they are business rich. And if something goes wrong, they just use the cash to acquire firms. So I think that's where there is a little bit of challenge and the slowness exists.
Yeah, that's a good point. In fact, younger organizations, they are more agile in terms of adopting innovation and new age tech as compared to the older organization, because of the inertia that they have. So sometimes, I also remember from corporate life, used to sometimes call these organizations as elephant in the room. So
Yes.
it takes a lot
Yeah.
of a lot of energy and effort to educate your customer to understand why, or to even uh, get to the point where they start considering whether they should adopt a new technology or not. But let me move to Deepak. Deepak, what is your viewpoint? I think there are certain good examples that have been shared by Preeti. So, what do you think? Do you see organizations losing their competitive edge if they are using AI, or without even realizing it? So, are there any such scenarios that you have seen in the
Oh,
industry?
tons of scenarios, tons of scenarios. Look, we just spoke about calling the elephant in the room, right? We sit in meetings and the CEO says something fantastic, and you sit there, and obvious to you there's something flawed in what he said, but we don't call out what I call the elephant in the room, which is there's something that's factually wrong that you just presented, but we don't, because we kind of like go with the flow. So I'm going to take a very jaundiced view of this, right? Here's my dilemma. I work with a lot of sales leaders, and I look at their behavior. And the problem that I'm seeing is pretty simple. I look at people talking about AI as if it's a tool, right? And this is the same problem that I remember from the 80s, the 90s, core competence. We went through that theory, right? Don't outsource your core competence, but we still outsource it. Then they said, don't outsource your tribal knowledge, but we still outsource our tribal knowledge, right? And we have been in this eternal search of, cost reduction, or eternal search of intelligence enhancement. Here's the fun part. AI gives you massive illusion. Number one that I'm seeing amongst people and most companies is that, can you believe it? But they actually think that prompting is thinking. There's your problem number one right there. When you ask me about behaviors that I see, let me tell you the first behavior. People think that prompting is thinking. People actually will sit down with AI, and typically salespeople, right? They'll generate proposals, emails, presentations. And here's the fun part. When I ask them fundamental questions around the understanding of the customer's business and what exactly are they aiming to deliver to the customer, they gave me what I call a hodgepodge of answers, but they never give me the true underlying commercial outcome that they're going to deliver to the customer. That's a big problem for us. The second behavior when we talk about alpha is, there's this entire thing. I spent 2 hours with AI and I produced 17 slides, right? To me, that's confusing productivity with performance. AI is performative, right?
Mm.
Preeti used a lot of words about AI, but I can tell you AI is also performative. It allows you to complete the work faster, but rather than sitting with your work and thinking about it, right? Remember, there's always this thing we used to say. If I had to solve a business problem, I'd spend 50 minutes thinking about it and then 10 minutes solving it. With AI, it's reversed. We spend 50 minutes solving it and only 10 minutes thinking about it. And the thinking is already jaundiced, it's damaged beyond repair. And here comes
Mm.
the best part, sir. When I was doing my research and I asked people a very simple question, here are a couple of things that I want to mention to you. 80% of people that work with AI take the outsourced information as the final judgment, and without question, they pass it on. Can you imagine the damage being caused? The question that bothers me the most is that if a tool is doing your thinking and you're adding zero value, what do I need you for? And I think
Yeah.
people are missing the point there. Many times I ask people, question number one, the effort that you did you show it to a senior exec before you submitted it? No. Why? Because you were confident in your result? No, because it read perfect to me. That's a very simple indicator. Every leader on the call, in the old days, if a salesperson needed guidance, he would go to a sales leader and seek guidance. But if today's
Mm.
salespeople are not seeking that guidance, ask them yourself, where are they seeking that guidance from? And if they're learning it from a system that learned from them in the first place, it's a circular death squad. You're shooting each other in the face. Think about it, right? So for me, these are the behaviors that could damage alpha. And here's the fun part, Alex talks about this distinction, very important distinction, right? Commoditizing. First of all, can you imagine, Vish? We're talking about a commodity whose real price is not even visible to us. What are we
Yeah.
saying here? We are using a subsidized product whose real cost is not even visible to us. People tell me about the 3% people using a digital divide of 97%, and I'm just smiling. What would happen to that divide when the real cost gets exposed? Because at some point, the bubble has to burst, right? So I can tell you one thing. I've worked with HP, Sun, Capgemini, and these companies don't win because they process information faster. They win because they interpret information far better than their competition, right? And then they
Mm.
align the internal stakeholders and the customers. At the end of the day, if a company is going to use AI as a glue to do that, I wish them all the best. And I wish them good speed, Godspeed on the downhill that they're about to go down on. Back to you,
Mm.
sir.
Thank you, Deepak. I think that's a good perspective. So I have got a comment from Sujodha Ghosh, and I thought let me just pick that comment. He actually commented on a previous post, and he has a point here, which is primarily in terms of the gauge that the customers are using. So his perspective is that perhaps customers are using a wrong gauge to make a decision on AI, like immediate ROI, etc., which is an incorrect practice to assess the value of futuristic technology. So the ones that are still going ahead is perhaps due to sheer scales that they have realized managing with analysts and automation was simply not possible, and few have devoted themselves in building AI, forgetting the core for which their organizations stand for in this highly evolving tech space. So there are actually two questions which he has shared in his perspective. So one is, the customers are using a wrong gauge to assess the effectiveness of AI, and secondly, they are forgetting the core within their organizations when they are building or they are devoting themselves on building their workflows as per AI. So, any comments that you have? That's a
I,
question to both of you.
this is one of those topics that Preeti, you and I could sit in the corner and cry and laugh at the same time, right?
Yes.
Here's wish the fun that I have noticed with humanity, right? We are in this eternal search for, cost reduction, cost arbitrage. We have tried everything. We first said let's outsource to India, then we said let's outsource to second tier cities in India, and now we're going to talk about outsourcing the third tier cities in India, right? And I
Mm.
think you go back to the fundamentals. What exactly were you outsourcing? Why were you outsourcing? That those principles were true in the 80s. Those principles are still true today.
Mm.
95% of AI effort fails for the simple reason that they built on very bad understanding of the process itself. People
Mm.
like it's I don't know how to say this to you, but it's like, getting a gym membership. You have done no analysis for capacity or capability, but you got the gym membership and now you're severely excited. And you have got this, and of course, AI gives you all the posters, right? That you create of yourself wearing those, tight underwear, tight cape, and you're like looking super god. The effort is still there. So for me,
Mm.
I always tell people, think of the fundamental principles. Do you have a robust process? Have you understood the process? Then we put AI on top of that. AI is not just a tool. AI is a thought process. I like what Preeti said. It's a business transformation, and I think that's a problem right there. And honestly speaking, if AI is a force multiplier, right?
Yeah.
Then the question is, where is HR in all of this, and why is this not a human capital issue?
Yes.
This
Absolutely.
is this is a big question, and here's the dilemma, right, Preeti? For the last 50 years, we are shouting that humans are what create companies. Because at 5 p.m., all you have left is a building. Everyone's gone home.
Yes.
So where's the P&L? Where's the balance sheet that actually shows that human capital? We still call it old accounting terms, right? Goodwill. We still call it, trademarks. We don't call human capital has always been difficult to pinpoint. So therefore, we and this is why I'm not sounding pessimistic, Vish. All I'm saying is that human beings really need to slow down a bit here. We are
Yeah.
always fear of missing out. We're always looking at shiny objects. And I think
Mm.
people like me who kind of say, could you please slow down? There's a difference between building a video of yourself riding a dolphin, whereas building a video that actually solves a problem. And 90% of humanity is spending time solving issues or using AI for the wrong reasons. And I'm not even going to get into the sustainability issues raised in my mind about all
Mm.
this energy, all this consumption that's being done,
Yeah.
fruitless, in my opinion. Sorry, Preeti, over to you, ma'am, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, no, no. I think you covered it all. I am seeing that I would call it a little bit of frustration, in terms of being able to explain to the top guys in the organization that sit on the table, try and understand what is it that you can do with AI. Please do not treat it as a budgeted, tick mark, which I said earlier. But you bring out a very, very valuable point. I've seen some learning organizations. Some of them were. I wouldn't go on to a age discrimination over here. I am also 62. But coming back to the point that there are some youngsters who do want to understand when they are running their organization. I'm talking about young chairmen, young CEOs who are taking interest in what is happening. That's a fun place to be in, if you ask me, because they are talking about a vision that gets connected, and sometimes they refine their vision when they realize what is possible. The possibilities are immense. And
Mm.
again, coming back to the point, it's not about what happens when we used to do work with the likes of McKinsey's and Bain's, etc. There were four strategic pillars. One was the strategy of the organization, then comes the operational excellence, then comes the commercial excellence, and then there was people excellence. The first two was easy to do, because strategy is, it'll only show up later. You only decide what you need to do, and there is a reason behind it. Operational excellence is still easy to do, but commercial
Mm.
excellence is tough. The toughest is the people excellence. And that's where I think what you just said is, where is HR in all of this? No, HR is not involved at all. And I think all the CXOs in an organization need to be tied with a bow, and they all have to be single minded about what it is that AI is going to deliver. And it is definitely not the basic key metrics like, can I get my bottom line? Can I get my top line? Can I get. It's not just that. So
Yeah.
you're absolutely right, and it's a very long conversation actually.
Yeah.
Which will require a separate session altogether. Over to you, Vishwendra.
No, thank you, Preeti. In fact, I have a follow up question here in the other discussion point that we have, and which is actually related to talent. So now we have talked about company, competitive advantage. But then how the competitive, I mean, you talked about certain areas, specific areas in terms of how that competitive advantage can be retained or competitive alpha can be retained. But the key part of this alpha is the talent, right? So, and there's one quote that I'm recollecting, and that's from Jensen Huang. He said, "AI won't take your job," and because there are a lot of concerns which people have been talking, which have been sharing that if AI has been adopted, we'll lose jobs. In fact, some of the customers still talk about pick up that subject when some of the leaders in the customer organization, because they feel that their immediate employees or would lose job if they are adopting AI. So his statement was, AI won't take your job. Someone using AI effectively might. So I take that one step further. Maybe it isn't just someone using AI. Maybe it's someone who takes ownership. So AI is making everyone more productive, as we talked about. But leaders are still standing out um, with those who bring clarity, who make decisions, who align stakeholders, who move things forward. So maybe AI is reducing the value of routine work while increasing the premium on high agency. So, if I come back to you, Preeti, and if you think about the best talent or commercial leader you worked with, if AI can do some of the routine work like writing emails, syncing your CRM system of records, preparing presentations, analyze meetings, meeting notes. So, what is that this person still does exceptionally well and preferred by the leaders?
See, one thing AI cannot and should not be allowed to do is taking accountability. Accountability of any decision will should be taken by a human being. That cannot be done, and unfortunately, many folks, pass it on to AI. Oh, AI gave me this, and that's what they present, without using the layer of their judgment and their decision making that sits on top of all the answers or the
Yeah.
suggestions or the reports or whatever presentations that AI makes. And I think there's a big difference between the two. While AI can make response times better, I think the decision time, will be very, very important in bringing the, two together, because decision time takes longer. And who makes that decision? The smartest person in the room, the
Mm.
guy who knows how to, and by guy I mean, anyone who is smart enough to navigate the same set of skills that we keep saying: critical thinking, ability to navigate, and so on and so forth. I won't go into that. Everybody knows what a good talent requires. But with AI, that person's human potential multiplies manyfold. And
Mm.
there is a paradox in the statement, if you will see, that the CEOs and the investors, they are actually clapping at the best
Mm.
talent. But we are asking a question whether AI will take away that. AI cannot take away that. The 4 points that I had mentioned in the beginning, those 4 points are still valid. Your
Yeah.
judgment, the contextualization, whether you're doing sales, whether you're doing, service or any other function in the organization, you have to have the ability to take calls smartly. You may have 10 answers. Anybody who uses AI will know that it gives you some 5, 6, 7 options. Which option to choose, or which set
Mm.
of options to choose, what kind of questions to ask. The prompt
Yeah.
itself is such a critical thing. I mean, only yesterday I came across a situation, and I'll give you that example. In an insurance world, a, a, a proposal comes with one proposition, and it's a slip kind of thing, which has all the data, and they say, we want you to reinsure this.
Mm.
Now, what happened was, the thought process behind that prompt was, let us just go ahead and configure it. So they used AI, and AI was able to read all the stuff and put it into the system, loaded it, very basic.
Mm.
Suddenly, the question that came up was, what if three opportunities come in the same mail? How
Mm.
will it pick up? It just garbled everything. So that
Correct.
point should have been considered at least 2 months ago.
Mm. Mm.
When it's nothing, no rocket science. but it's the thinking of the prompt person, that why will one entity talking to you or a partner, why would they only send one opportunity at a time? They might bundle three, four, five opportunities. Can you
Correct.
create a prompt design that can pick up all of it? But
Mm.
because number one, the person did not have context to the subject, it was passed out to the technology or the AI team, and the AI team did whatever they saw. So it was more
Mm.
of an order taking exercise rather than ability to think through and be able to respond to that. I think that's a direct example, very simple example, but there are
Yeah.
many more complex examples in running a business. And I'm taking this simplicity because I'm not getting into complexity of it all. But this happens all the time. And
No, that's a very relevant example. In fact, most of the organizations, I have seen, I'm working with or worked with, have faced similar kind of situations wherein they do not have clarity on the prompt, or they do not have clarity even on the workflows.
yes,
What should be. So if I have certain context, then what is next? So that's where AI is not able to execute in the way a high agency human can do. But yeah, good to have that context. And let me request the audience to share their questions. We have only 20, 25 minutes left for this session. So do share your questions, and we'll ensure that I'll prioritize your questions or the questions that I have. I have many questions as of now, but I would still prefer if the audience could share their questions, as we have a surprise gift for them. So, but let me come to the. So we talked about the company Alpha. We also talked about the high agency talent. Now let me talk about the commercial playbooks. And we especially when we are looking at the buyers. So how buyers perspective has been changing, and how these playbooks that we have um, are would that be still fit for purpose, or do we need to revisit those? So in fact, for many years, and you would agree with me that we have been, one idea that was all around B2B sales, which is educate the buyer. So, and most of the sales book, from Spin and Challenger to Value Selling and Matic, were created when sellers knew more than buyers. So I'm not sure that's true anymore, but because today's buyers have already spoken to AI, they have, compared vendors, uh, they have read analyst reports, watched demos, so and so forth. So perhaps the seller's role might be changing from educating buyers to helping buyers make sense of complexity, something of those lines. But let me have this question to Deepak. So Deepak, if buyers are already informed before the first meeting, what are sellers really selling today? And are we, the sales playbook that we had from yesteryears, do we need to revisit these sales playbooks?
Quite a lot there, quite a lot there, Vish. I mean, we spoke about Medic, Challenger, Spice. These are all, sales techniques, sales methodologies. I'm a Sanders certified person. Here's the reality. People throw these names out, right, in the hope that we're going to throw stones at them. And here's reality. It's like the 10 commandments. Life can be very simple. You live them on basic rules and principles, right? I can tell you right now, there's no technique is going to die just like that, right? Here's why. Because I think what's happening in this conversation is that we confuse a framework with a script. Script, this is what I've hated about selling, right, Fish? Scripting. Too much scripting will always kill you. And that's where the frameworks rise above that, right? A framework teaches you a methodology or a system, not a script. And what I want to tell people is as follows. Great sales methodologies have never been about following the exact same order of questions, right? They've actually been teaching you how to question, how to discover. It's always been about thinking. When did we, I mean, if you look at the novice salesperson, right, they're the ones following scripts, but a senior folk person would never follow script. He follows his gut, he follows his instinct. So for me, that is always been the way of thinking. That's what I've experienced, right? So now what AI is doing is that it's exposing that type of thinking, and it's turning those frameworks into checklists. That's the danger. And I think this is the message I've been trying to explain to people. What you're now doing is whatever commercial judgment you have developed, you're now second guessing yourself because AI tells you in immense detail what they recommend, right?
mm,
I these what we're trying to do with AI and what we're trying to do in sellers and with these frameworks, they're very different jobs. 20
mm,
years ago, honestly, if you and I were selling, we walked into a room, you and I were expected to know more about our product than what the customer knew, right? Wish it was our
yeah,
job to educate them about our product, right? Now, today,
yes,
everyone bashes features. I get that. And we want to talk about pain. But here's the fun part: AI has actually accelerated the customer's own understanding. They're most likely compared competitors. Most likely, they've got some very powerful AI that has looked at analyst reports, and they actually have questions for us which are very pointed.
mm,
Instead of us showing them a 1 hour demo, maybe they only need to see a 15-minute demo that only covers three items in it, right? So
mm,
the fun
mm,
part here is that it's not about the information. The information is there, it's more about alignment. The future is going to be for a salesperson that can actually get that alignment. So an
mm,
alignment typically comes as an example. In the good old days, we could predict what finance could ask. We could predict what procurement would
mm,
ask, right? We sat with a legal person, we knew what they would ask. Today with AI, boundaries are bleeding, ladies and gentlemen. You will get a question from procurement which has nothing to do with procurement. You're going to get a
mm,
question from IT which has nothing to do with IT because everyone is getting way too powerful for from my perspective, right? And there's a certain element of confidence in that. What needs to happen is discovery used to be owned by the salesperson. Wish
mm,
we spoke about agency earlier, right?
yeah,
Discovery is now not going to be only about pain, it's also going to be about what is the fundamental decision making system inside the customer, who influences whom, and how will consensus break down. We need to target that. And I can tell you
mm,
right now, Vish, the same techniques that were very powerful 20 years ago are the ones that are needed again today. But their challenge now is different. There's an onslaught from AI. You really require people with heart and spirit to actually understand. AI is
mm,
not a teacher. AI is just a sharpener of your own intelligence. To me, AI stands for artificial intelligence, but in the case of a salesperson, it stands for augmented intelligence. And when you
mm,
understand that you are not the human in the loop, you are the human with AI in the loop, that's when selling people will preserve themselves. Now, to answer this very question, someone using AI will take your job. Let me put it to this way. The metaphor in my mind is, and I say this to salespeople, when you are already in a competitive field where your judgment is made upon your performance, and where we already know that mathematically speaking, over time, the law of averages, law of large numbers tells us that 20% of the guys will make 80% of the number. Why do
mm,
you think that AI is going to help everyone equally then? Think about it, right? The great equalizer, rising water rises all. Watch out for that. Number two,
mm,
if you are in a field and you have to run to the other end and the field has got rocks, the salesperson that stops to put on his sport shoes and then run is going to win. And for me,
mm,
AI is the sport shoes. He will actually sit down, put those shoes on while the rest have just started running because they believe that they need to do the motions. That's AI for you right there. And people tell me, Deepak, you sound like a pessimist. AI will not reduce jobs, AI will create new jobs. And my answer is as follows. In the last 10 years that I've been doing predictive analytics, most jobs that were created that were in demand for data analytics and stuff required some level of intelligence, some required some specialized training. But the
mm,
jobs going away today to AI are not those specialized jobs, right? Yet. The good news about AI is that previously we used to cut the cake this way, right, Preeti? Now finally we're cutting the cake this way. And when we cut the cake this way, the very people that used to think that they're sitting at the top sacrosanct because they spent 8 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes thinking about a slide now have lost that ability. This thinking is done by a tool, and that thinking is done at a faster rate than what humans could have done. So
yeah,
there will be I'm not saying it's apocalypse, right? Apocalypse, is that the right pronunciation? I'm not saying that. I don't want to be chicken little, the sky is falling. But I do want to warn people, if you're not adopting, not embracing, and not doing it in control, you do put yourself on the back foot. Absolutely. And that's the elephant in the room for me, Vish.
thank you. Thanks, Deepak. So that's a very good point, and especially when we are, referring to the sales playbooks. So, as you said, sales playbooks are not, need to be revisited as we move forward because buyers' way of buying is also changing at the same time. So there's also when buyers are doing that bit of education themselves, there's also a speed confidence paradox that comes in, especially while they are getting fast responses from the sales team. but the decisions have become very slow. And you also talked about some of these aspects, especially in terms of how salespeople could become have been responding very fast, but still at the same time the buyers are not able to make a decision, though they have a lot of information which they have gathered from various sources, through AI, through proposals, or the demos, the case series. um, However, their response time is slow. So that's a question to Preeti. So if we have made this, if the AI has actually um, made uh, made the speed, means it, in terms of um, what you say, is the uh, bring bringing the seller organization up to speed, especially on the areas which they were lacking earlier. Would it making the sellers more confident, or would it would it be making buyers more confident? Because at the same time, while buyers have that information that they have gathered, but when they are evaluating, or when they are interacting with the sellers, so whom AI is making more confident as part of this speed trust journey? So is it the buyers who are becoming more confident with whatever information that they have, that they are not been going to be educated, or is the sellers who are becoming more confident? But then, if they are becoming confident, where is the gap? Why is the decision taking a lot of time?
That's a very interesting question, and to me, it is an extension of what Deepak just explained beautifully. Uh, you know, Here's what I also come from the sales world, and I realize that whenever you go to a customer, especially if you are speaking to a knowledgeable person, today they also have access to AI. The kind of questions we as sellers, I'm talking from a seller perspective, and I'll come down to the buyer's perspective as well. Uh, as sellers, I find they have very good knowledge on things that are happening in the world, how things are getting implemented. So the response time at that juncture in the entire process of sales, I'll take that as an example, is very quick. I mean, they know everything, and so you don't have to educate them as much because they can go and do their own homework. I think it is getting clarity out of that overload of information that is sitting, which a consultative seller can help with. Number one, an enterprise seller. The second part that is very important is if one wants to create trust, speed is good to get. I'm sure there are some reports I had read some time back that 70% of the opportunities are locked in the first few weeks, when you reach very quickly to that and start having a dialogue. But take your time to ensure that the decision is made not by pushing a solution to the customer, but understanding their context, right? Validating the assumptions that have been made in making the solution for them, and have a detailed conversation to come to a joint kind of an understanding that yes, we take the solution together and get into the market. And why I'm saying this is exactly what I found in one of the places where I was positioning claims fraud AI based solution. On auto claims, there is a lot of fraud. There are kinds of frauds where you exaggerate a claim, where the auto garage, where I'm sure you put your cars in and it's cashless. You find that a lot of claims are exaggerated, even wear and tear is pushed inside that. Then there are fraud rings where you keep using that. It happens in medical, it happens in mediclaim, it happens in auto insurance, where rings work together to keep claiming, because there is no punitive action. At best, they will repudiate your claim. So this is not considered a criminal conspiracy, and nobody goes to jail for doing that. So it's a very common thing. The agent, the insurance officer, the inspector, police inspector, all of them get together to do that. I'm explaining this because there are multiple types of investigations that need to be carried out. When you're talking to the customer, every customer doesn't have the same problem. But if I go with a solution which, one size fits all. It doesn't. So I think once the problem statement is identified, the same old rules of consultative selling come in. You get yourself into the trust of the customer, and that's where trust building happens, when you hear them out as opposed to pushing your solution, and that's when you build trust. So to me, there are three C's, in this whole exercise. One C is for go fast, when you have to get clarity right in the beginning. Then the second one, which is when you are actually just qualifying an opportunity, your response time is fast, you're acknowledging the customer, they are happy with that. But go deep when you are building confidence, which means that's when you're building a solution together or agreeing on a solution. That is very important. And third is continue to communicate with the customer, which means go continuous if you want long term commitment and sustainability with the customer. So this is the
Mm,
speed trust, and the speed in all of this will be different. And
mm,
as Deepak had said earlier, you'll be as slow as the lowest speed person or entity in the entire process. And so while AI speed, there was a book by Bill Gates who said, something at the speed of thought.
Speed of
Uh,
thought, yeah.
Speed
yeah.
of thought, yeah. So I'm just trying to get there, that, it that cannot be the way things work. They will work at the pace of the organization with whom you work, and the lowest common denominator will be the decision making speed. So speed
Mm,
and trust have to be balanced out in the entire process. At this stage, I believe the speed is faster as opposed to earlier. A trust is still building up, but I think this will the speed of decision making will increase as trust on AI starts building with multiple companies. Today, the use of it, or the, I won't use the word ROI, but the outcomes are being still being seen. Let us put it like that.
Vish,
yeah,
can
that's
I
a,
need to add to Preeti there, because this is such a hot
sure.
topic, and I think the people listening really need to lean in on this conversation, because this is actually operationally relevant to a lot of sellers who may be on the call, right, Preeti? Here's what I've come to realize. And Preeti is spot on. Fast response is good because it signals professionalism, right? I get it. We're customer focused, a quick response. But where the assumption goes wrong is that you think that that gets you trust. Every subsequent step should not be equally fast. Go slow. You need to focus on qualification. Preeti's message is very clear. People think fast means qualifying fast. Qualifying fast to get out, yes, I can understand. But if you're qualifying always to stay in, you have a
Yes.
problem, right? So what's going on there? And I can be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I can today generate 50 beautifully formatted pages. Awesome. But I can tell you, I've not understood the commercial problem I'm trying to solve. But guess what? I have 50 slick pages ready to go. That's a massive problem. People are now looking at that slickness and getting confused. Slickness does not constitute, validity. Quality is very, very important. And I can tell you one thing, and I want to say this to everyone on this call here. Wish, in my entire career, I have never seen how I won a complex deal by submitting my proposal 24 hours earlier. I've never seen
Mm,
that. I've never seen it. I'm waiting for the day that my submitting the complex bid early got me, it's ultimately what resonates, right? If my bid that I submitted 24 hours earlier answered the wrong problem, ignores the right key stakeholders, right? And makes no compelling business case, then what speed am I talking about?
yeah.
Back to you, Ish.
Thank you. That's a very good point. In fact, so the what I could make out is the speed plus balance has to be worked out, and we cannot leave that to AI for that kind of judgment. When we should fasten the process, or when we should focus our time and effort in building that trust. So yeah, that's a human judgment. That's a the and I'm not sure if that can be solved by AI in future, but I think that's still going to be owned by the human who will be involved in that seller or buying journey. So I've also received a comment here. Sorry, I'm not able to see the name of the person, but his comment is, we can easily make out if it is sales marketing. It is a sales marketing by an AI agent or a human agent. I always reject a machine powered sales pitch right away. So yeah, that's again, goes back to the point that you made about the trust. So that if you see any such pictures which are being created by machine, the trust level is not there as compared to the pictures that you can get from human. So Preeti, you had any point to make here?
Delegate only tasks to AI. Do not delegate accountability to AI. If
Yeah.
I'm a seller, I will want to, uh, you know, build trust and be accountable for the decision made. I cannot say tomorrow, oh, AI took that decision. No, that is mine to take. So there's
Mm.
plethora of information that AI can generate. What I'm going to use and how I'm going to interact with my customer. Remember, there is a human sitting there always, irrespective of however good my solution is. And you remember we spoke about this in our last conversation also, Vish, that it is very important to address the right side of the brain. It's a person
Mm.
sitting there, and you only build trust with people, you don't build trust with an AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Vish, I have to add something to what Preeti said. There's a little test I give people, right? In the early 80s, 90s, right? There used to be this huge ethical dilemma because there was a graph that showed the more MBAs being generated, the more ethics crimes were occurring, right? Enron and this and that. So causality, fun, right? Right, Preeti? The more MBAs, more chaos. But there's something that actually blew my mind, and I just wanted to call this one out, right? We talk about AI, we talk about slop, right? we There's a lot happening, but there's ultimately the reality of the judgment, right? It's becoming easy to create a lot of information overload for people. I need people to actually slow down, ask yourself a very simple question. If I were to suffer reputational harm from the decision I'm making based on this AI's output, have I spent the right amount of time to validate this before I give it over? Answer that simple question. My mom used to tell me, any decision you take in life, Deepak, just ask yourself a very simple thing. If your mother heard it while drinking her cup of coffee in the morning that you did this wrong, or you were in the headlines for the wrong reasons, how would I be choking on that coffee of mine? Just imagine that image, picture that image. So everyone, think about the reputational harm and the erosion of trust that would occur in this decision that you're taking. If you have outsourced that totally to AI, that slow down. Use that as a benchmark. Any decision where your trust will be eroded, where you will lose ground, reputation will take harm, please own that. And that, to Preeti, you call it accountability. And that's how I'd like to close my conversation for today, at least, Vish. Accountability
Thank.
matters. You cannot outsource
Yeah.
that to machine. You cannot hide behind that.
Yes, absolutely. So the speed may get you considered, but confidence gets you chosen. The trust gets you chosen. So I have one more question, which is the last question for the session, and this is because we already talked about, in the entire discussion we talked about the various angles, especially in terms of alpha, in terms of high agency talent. So it's not the information, it's not the technology, it's the judgment, which actually is very critical in this entire competitive advantage. So and that also raises one final question that I have, which is, can organizations preserve judgment, or they can only preserve documents? And this question to you, Deepak, what is the most expensive, if say for instance, because we have seen many scenarios in the organizations wherein certain commercial heads, they have been owning the relationship, they have been owning how these deals with those customers have been structured, what kind of the deal dynamics which have been there on in place. And if that person leaves the organization, that information goes with them. And in fact, I heard from someone who mentioned, people have, actually recruit employees from their competitors primarily because they can also get the tribal knowledge from that organization, and that actually makes them more competitive. But in your journey, what's the most expensive commercial mistake that you have seen? Not because information was missing, but because commercial judgment was missing. That commercial reasoning was missing in the organization. And
Oh,
if you have an example.
there's tons of those, right? Which, Here's the reality being in sales, right? There's so much tribal knowledge, so much knowledge. Now, we had this phrase institutional knowledge. We get excited, right?
Yeah.
Institutional knowledge is the touchy feely stuff. Not the touchy feely stuff. It's the I touch a piece of paper, they think that that's a document. A CRM system is knowledge, right? A proposal repository. I have printed 300 copies of a proposal lying on a shelf. That's my knowledge. And today with AI, everyone says, "Oh, cool! I'm going to scan this knowledge and I'm going to do this to it, and I'm going to have a vector database." Yeah, this is all valuable. Here's what I've come to realize in my significant career leading enterprise pricing, bid management, commercial operations. You can have all the outstanding systems in the world. You can have every code that's documented. You can make a lot of decisions on that. At the end of the day, the decision making process that was applied by the human can end up being a black box because people don't actually understand what logic was applied. I know it sounds very funny what I'm saying over here, but think about it. We focus a lot of time on algorithms, but human beings are also thinking very, very uniquely, right? When do we miss that thinking? We miss that thinking when, and in my experience, this is when someone very senior disappears, right? Someone says that, hey guys, I have found my successor. We have brought in someone who is young, dynamic, understands how AI works. And in the very first meeting, guess what happens, Vish? He cannot explain what is going on with the pricing. He cannot explain the sentiment in the room because the senior executive who knew that tribal knowledge, who understood, who's been watching that account for 10 years, has now gone from the system. This is why
Yeah.
I love it when youngsters tell me, what do you mean? Go to Joanne for support, but Joanne's like furniture. She's been here for 30 years. What can she tell me? You'd be surprised what people learn in those 30 years, right? So in our
Correct.
search, what's happened is that we have taken experience to think as ageism, right, to some degree. The fun with commercial leaders that I work with was wish they're powerful at recognizing patterns long before they show up in dashboards. I don't know how to say this to you, but Preeti, you know what I mean, right? You'll have an exec who says
Absolutely.
that he sees a graph
Uh,
and he says, I don't understand this graph because my intuition tells me otherwise. Go back and check. 90% of the time when I've checked, the data was wrong because the guy, his intuition kicked in. That is not an AI talking. That's a human being who has harnessed his ability to figure out what's going on and ask it, right? So it's not going to be about retrieval speed, right? Of course AI can retrieve information far faster. Do you remember the good old days, guys, when we used to ask a company that, hey, by the way, can you find me the invoice from 2 years ago? And they would tell you, oh, it's in an offsite location. We have to put a request and it'll take us 3 weeks to pull it out. Then we have to
Yeah.
fax it to you. Today people even don't even know that what this means. They just put in a field a number and pop, boom, there you go, you got it in 2 seconds. And in fact there's no cost to it. It's not the retrieval, it's the analysis of what's happening in the moment that's going to be the definition for me. And I've always said this: look, human beings have been very good at document management. Human beings have been very good at e-signatures. Human beings are very good at flow. Human beings have not been very good with wisdom. And wisdom is acquired over time. It's intuition. It's the ability to know that this doorknob on this door turns, but you have to slightly lift it up because it catches on a joint inside. And when you do it, only then the door opens. Right? How many times at home we had this situation where the child says, Mom, I can't get out. My door is locked. And you say, oh, calm down, calm down. Lift the key up slightly, rotate it, then it'll open, and it opens. That, ladies and gentlemen, is passed through generations of conversations, generations of experience. I'm sounding very nostalgic right now, but to me, I think that's very important. We need to preserve this commercial judgment, and we need to preserve it at scale. Back to the human capital issue. Over to you, Vish.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you so much for these views. Preeti, you had a point. Do you think how can an organization retain a commercial memory in the age of AI era? Do you have any point here to make? You're on mute. Okay, I think Preeti, can you hear us? All right, I think she can't hear us. But I'm going to, with this note that is being shared by Deepak, I'm going to quickly conclude this session. And it was a very thought-provoking session. Thank you, Preeti, and thank you, Deepak, for sharing your views with the audience. And thank you to everyone who joined us live and made today's conversation engaging. Of course, we haven't got candidates who have asked that many questions, but if you have any request to have one-on-one conversation with our speakers, do share with us. But let me quickly conclude before I finally close this session. When we started, we asked a simple question: AI, everyone has it. Why are businesses still losing? So after listening to both of you, I think one thing has become clear: if intelligence is becoming abundant, competitive advantage must come from somewhere else. And I like to leave with the five leadership shifts for the AI era. The first shift is from intelligence to judgment that we talked about. So AI can generate answers, leaders create judgment. Second shift is from productivity to agency. So everyone can become more productive. Not everyone takes ownership. Third shift from information to sense making. So customers don't need more information. They need help making better decisions. Fourth point, fourth shift from speed to confidence. So speed gets you considered and confidence gets you chosen, that we discussed earlier. Fifth shift from knowledge to institutional learning. So winning organizations don't just capture knowledge, they preserve judgment and compound learning. And if there's one message I would leave you with it is this: the winners in the AI era won't simply have better AI. They will build organizations that learn faster, decide better, and adapt quicker than everyone else. Because in the end, AI can generate intelligence, but only people and great organizations can build judgment. So that's a there's the last part of this conversation. And apart from that, we have our next session on 20th of August. And this session is on are your commercial assumptions becoming liabilities? We have two gentlemen who are joining us. One is Sanjay Srivastav and other is Vijay Sabarwal. They are both coming from the industrial real estate background, and we'll be actually talking about these commercial assumptions from the perspective of uh, products, pricing, customer, competition, markets within the and growth within the industrial and B2B manufacturing organizations. So thank you so much for joining this session, and do register for the session that we have displayed here. The link of this session is going to be shared in the comment section. But thank you again. Thanks, Preeti and Deepak, for joining this session and making this conversation very informative and insightful. And I'd like to also thank the audience who have joined us today. And we'll see you on 20th of August. Thank you so much.
Bye bye, everyone.